There is a huge fight card this weekend in the UFC with UFC 285, and who better to come on and talk about it, plus tell you what bets to lock in than Jason, aka at Bully the Line on social media. Jason, how you doing today, my friend?
Good. Thanks again, man. How you doing, Eric? Thank you for having me on, man.
I'm doing good, doing good. Bracing for this alleged snowstorm that's going to be gracing us here in the Chicagoland area. But I got no complaints, my friend. Interesting card. We got Jones coming back, making the jump up to heavyweight. We got Semenchenko, absolutely loaded prelim card. The debut of Bo Nickel, who is getting hyped up like we haven't really seen before. So interesting card. Interesting to see what bets you are locking in. We're just going to work our way up. We're going to start with the prelim card and then go through the main card and just tell any bets we're looking to lock in. Jason, I'll let you start off. What is your first bet?
Yeah, man. I'm gonna start off on the prelim card there. I'm gonna start with Derek Brunson versus Duplessis. Derek Brunson comes in 23-8 versus Duplessis 18-2, and the odds on this one, you've got. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, you got Duplessis about a minus 230 favorite versus Derek Brunson 185, and these are two guys that pretty much are wrestler, pretty much are both ground and pound wrestlers, and both of them don't really have a lot of cardio going for either one of them, especially Derek Brunson, who's basically been knocked out. In his 8 losses, 6 of those have been by knockout, and hasn't fared really that well in his last couple of fights, as well. So when it comes to this, I'm going to go with the guy who could probably have the stronger cardio when it comes to the fights, and that's Duplessis. And so I basically have him I look for him to do TKO and over 1.5 rounds. So right now my book does not have a number on Duplessis by TKO, but does have a number on the over 1.5 rounds, and that's what I'm going to roll with. So over minus 165 on over 1.5 rounds in this fight. I just think that they're both going to go at it pretty hard, that first round, and hopefully they'll be worn out by the time. And so maybe, Duplessis can get that knockout. So that's kind of how I see this one kind of playing out. Just two guys who just don't have a lot of cardio.
I'm okay. Duplessis, I'm looking at it on FanDuel right now. Obviously, the state, North Carolina, where you're located at, FanDuel hasn't graced you yet with their presence and their wonderful customer service. I'm being facetious. They're at he's at plus 125.
125?
Plus 125 for knockout.
Yeah, I like the plus number. So I would roll that. Hopefully my book will get that that prop up, and that's probably what I would take.
My first bet, I am going to be in the prelim as well. I am going to the fight right after that. I am looking at my girl, a phenomenal Instagram follow, Amanda Ribas, against Vienna or Girona, and I know I just totally just butchered that name. Both of their grappling is going to be canceling each other out, so I really feel this just comes up to a stand-up game. With Ribas' stand-up game, she's going to win this, and she's going to win this by decision. She throws more punches. She's faster with her striking. She's going to be throwing more volume. All that is going to be more visually appealing to the judges. So I'm going with Ribas by decision at plus 155. I think that's their only path to victory. I mean, if you want to play conservative, I have no problem playing the money line of minus 120, but I don't see her submitting her. I don't see her knocking her out. I think you take the plus money, you play the plus 155 by decision. So that's my first bet on the card. Now we're going to shift our attention up to the main card. We don't have anything going on in the Nichols fight, but real quickly, this kid is getting a lot of hype. Phenomenal wrestler. Like elite wrestler. And every champion we've seen has had that wrestling pedigree, great on the ground, can get him to the ground. but I mean, like we're seeing like what, like minus 1900. You know what I mean? Like that's just a little bit too much for somebody making. No, I'm looking right now, minus 2200.
Crazy.
I mean, geez, that's just a little bit too much. I mean, can you
Yeah,
imagine?
when I looked at this fight, there was just nothing there that I thought that had any sort of value that I could play. Maybe throw them in a parlay, maybe that route, but is it even really worth it? Maybe if you're hanging out at the party or something, throw them in a parlay. But really, I just saw nothing of real value overall when it came to just betting. So I'm just going to enjoy that fight, and that's how
Can
pretty
you
much I'm going
imagine
to let
if
that
he
one
lost,
play out.
though? Can you imagine if this kid went in there and he lost?
Oh my god.
I
Yeah, no,
mean,
that's the other way to do it. I guess you play pick it or nothing.
yeah, I mean, like if I'm doing this like this, I'm almost getting 10-1 on a guy who's been in the cage before, been in the octagon against someone who's only had 2 fights in Dana White's Contender Series. And I get it. He's an elite wrestler, All American. He's won the Dan Hogan Award. I get it. I understand it. But that's a big price. This is like a huge. Is John Bones Jr., John Bones, who's considered the greatest of all time, has he ever been this big of a favorite? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, price wise, I feel you need to fade him, but I'm not betting the kid. If you do, that's on you. But I could never bet him. We
Yeah,
both have
no, I
a
think the only play is throw a couple bucks on Pickett. I wouldn't even
yeah.
go,
Throw
you know.
25 bucks on him. 25 bucks at 10-1 to win 250. Why not?
Yeah, that's the only play I see in that fight.
Now we both have a bet in the Turner Gramont fight. I'll let you kick it off. Where you going with here?
Yeah, man. In this fight, you got about Gamma looking at about a minus 230 favorite. We got Turner at plus 185 as a dog there. And this once again is another fight where two wrestlers that are kind of submission specialists. A lot of their fights go the distance between both of these two. Especially with Gambit, his last fight was in a decision. Actually, his last let's see, 2 out of his last 3 fights have been by decision. And I like this one to go the round. The value I saw, and also with Turner is just a submission specialist. So both of these guys are going to be at the ground. That's going to be wasting time. I think it's a really close fight. I think it's one of the better fights of the night. I think going into the pay-per-view. But I got this one going the distance at plus 185. With that plus money, I think it's good value for two guys that are pretty much on the mat the entire time, and that's just ticking those rounds away, ticking away the time on those rounds. So I like this one to go the distance. I think there's value in that plus 185.
I like it. I think this one's going to be a long fight. And I took Turner plus the 185. My thought process is this. I think he's got more power than Grommet has. And I think if this is a stand-up fight, I think he's got a huge advantage. We need to remember he has a 7-inch reach advantage and he's 5 inches taller. This is a big guy. I don't think Grommet, when he goes for that single leg, is going to be able to get him to the ground. And this is going to force it to be more of a stand-up fight. And if this is a stand-up fight, I think Turner's got a phenomenal, huge advantage. I graded this when I made my lines for this closer to like it's closer to like a plus 120, plus 115. I'm getting plus 185 on Turner. To me, that's a no-brainer. So I took Turner plus 185.
Yeah, I think that's a great bet. And also, he's pretty much Turner has an advantage in a lot of areas. Also, his leg reach, he's got a 7-inch leg reach too as well. So take that into consideration too as well. With that plus 185. Yeah, and if you also look at Turner's last couple fights, submission win, TKO, submission. So he's 3 out of the last 2. He's choking them out. So I think Turner should not be definitely should be a little bit lower price on him.
I have this closer.
Kind of like a weird line a little bit, but
now our next one, we're going to Neil against Rachmanov. you have a bet in this one. Who are you going with, my friend?
Yeah, this one, once again, this is going to be another one that kind of goes to this. I have this one, and I try to find the best value because as of right now, Romanov's about a minus 525 favorite. And then you have Jeff Neal plus 365. Once again, this was another fight that I saw on paper. These two can kind of go the distance. And I got this one going over 2.5 rounds at plus 145. These have all the last fights between Romanov and Jeff Neal have gone into the either have gone to decision, especially in Neal's fights. The last 3 out of his last 2 have gone to decision. So he's lasted a long time in these fights, has the cardio to last, and Romanov's a submission specialist, so he's going to be on the ground too as well. I got this one over 2.5 rounds, saw the value plus 145.
I like it. For me, this fight for me was the toughest one to predict. I think Neal's takedown defense is a little underrated, and I think Romanov's stand-up is a little better than people realize. So I think this fight is going to could sneakily be the fight of the fight card, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the majority of Romanov's fights go into the second round as well. So he's got that history of going kind of the distance sort of deal. But he's going into these later rounds, which I do think that kind of favors that. So maybe getting that over 2.5. So
I like that a lot. I think this is going to be a long fight. I wouldn't surprise me if it goes to the judges at all. So I completely agree with you. My next one is I'm going to the co-main event, and we got Alexa Grasso against Shevchenko, and I think we can all agree it's only a matter of time before Shevchenko will lose the title, but I don't think this is it. She's a great grappler, awesome jiu-jitsu, and with that being said, I think Alexa is going to look to use her boxing to keep the distance and make this fight standing. I think Shevchenko is going to use her kicks to close the distance, and once she's able to close the distance, she's going to get Alexa on the ground. I'm seeing submissions at prices at plus 260. If you want to take the plus 200 on knockout, this could easily be a ground and pound, but I think she's going to look to get this crucifix in and make her tap. I'm going to take Shevchenko plus the 260 submission price.
Awesome.
Now, the main event, and this is a little, I'm going to tell you guys right now, for those listening and for Jason, Chael Sanders, what's his last name? Channel. The guy that fought Silva. Silva came back and beat him. I'm spacing his name. It's like CH. But he was on a MMA podcast, and he was alluding to some sort of love triangle between Shevchenko, Holly Holm, and John Bones Jones. Really interesting listen. Really alleged. Sorry, I was supposed to say the word allegedly, but alleged love triangle. So we got John Bones Jones coming back to the octagon for the first time since February 8th of 2020. What's your thought process here in this fight?
Yeah, man. Going with value, and I'm a big John Jones fan. Like, I've always loved his fighting style. I always love watching him fight. He's basically the GOAT. Like, I think he's basically one of the best fighters out there, hands down. But when it comes to a betting aspect of it, I'm always looking at the value of the numbers. And Jones had a 3-year layoff, and so he hasn't fought in 3 years. And even his fights 3 years ago, like his last fight was against Dominic Reyes, was a decision, unanimous decision. Against Santos, there's a decision there. Against Anthony Smith, a decision there. And some of those fights, you could argue that he should have lost those fights. So his history coming into this fight plus the layoff has me a little concerned there. And also John Jones will be moving up to the heavyweight division. Will that have an impact? We don't know. That could affect him. You don't know in these kind of fights. And Gagne is a good striker and a good leg kicker. So, he's going to have his, be able to hold his own. I think the layoff just has me a little spooked on my end. I'm going to take Gagne plus 150. And I like this one to go the distance too as well, minus 120. Just the layoff really just has me, question marks there. I love John Jones, man. The guy's awesome, but I'm gonna go with the plus money here with Gagne.
I like it, and I'm going to go down a little path. We need to remember that Jones has a history with, we'll say, some enhancement drugs. We'll use that term. Like how much did that put into the greatness that he was? You know what I mean? Like, we got to remember that. We got to remember the testing is a lot more elaborate than the last time he has fought. This is the biggest guy by far he's ever fought against. And he hasn't been in the octagon for 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, to me, you got to play one of the two guys. You got to play either. Now, let me ask you about this. What about playing your bet, or could we say Jones's only path to victory is decision?
That's the way I'm seeing it.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe play it like that. That way, like, you have it in either or. I don't know. This fight to me, another one, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just spitballing ideas with you off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of spotlight on the judges and things like that with UFC. So I think, the last thing UFC needs is a fight where there's a controversial decision, favors Jones. They're going to say, it's rigged, blah, 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 blah. So I think the judges are going to need to be, definitely, they're always fair, but they're going to need to, they're going to really need to favor the real fighter this time, if that comes into play. So
this fight, a ton of questions about. I really have no idea how it's going to play out. This is going to be a fight for me. I'm just going to sit back, crack open a tasty Corona, and just take it in. Jason, I'd like to thank you for coming on and talking some UFC. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, my friend?
Yeah, you can follow along on Twitter at Boy the Line. I'll throw some plays out there and Taylor fade, man.
Hey, you know what? It's all about making that money. I appreciate you coming on. You're going to also, once NHL gets a little bit closer to the playoffs, you're going to be coming on talking some NHL and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely look forward to it.
Really looking forward to that. I wish you all the best of luck in your bets, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Erik, man. Thanks again for having me.